Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. You heard in the news earlier that Meta, Facebook, and Instagram have recently settled the trial that they've been going through for an inordinate amount, essentially admitting to creating addictive pathways within the platforms that they've designed, and how those addictive pathways have direct effects on those who are children, so anyone under 18. Now, there's a lot to be said for parental regulation of access to social media technology and digital technology, but my friend Brian Shanley brought a sentence to my attention, and it's a line from Hotel California. It's this old song, and the words are, "We are all just prisoners here of our own device." And I realized as we were talking that applies to our contemporary era very accurately. Hotel California was released in 1976, and that one sentence, it was actually aimed at criticizing a self-created captivity of excess. But really, it does apply to the particular device you and I call our smartphones or our screens. Now, the smartphone is a device because calling it an electronic leash would hurt quarterly earnings, but it's a real instrument that can subjugate our autonomy because we can become tremendously dependent on it, and it can increasingly determine where our eyes go, what our eyes see, and how long our minds remain on our screens. Now, I want to make clear, technology possesses no moral guilt. It is a morally neutral device. Silicone chips cannot sin, algorithms cannot be held to moral accountability, but we can construct technologies in particular ways that can distort incentives or exploit vulnerabilities within the fallen human nature and human psychology, especially if there's enormous financial profit involved, and that matters, because every discussion we have about digital dependency always attracts at least one individual who will announce that smartphones are merely tools and that the entire problem is individual self-control. And they're right. They really are right. It really is like describing a casino as a building that provides a form of entertainment. They're right in that sense. The problem, however, is that both of these things, smartphones as well as casinos, they employ sophisticated behavioral architecture that is meant to draw in individuals as they use them. And psychologists have studied these mechanisms for decades now. Digital platforms frequently rely upon what we call variable rewards. So they encourage repeated checking through unpredictable social reinforcement. What that means is, you and I as users, we never know when another notification or flattering response or like or share will hit. And so the lack of that consistency and expectation delivers tiny psychological rewards and dopamine hits. But they also draw our hands to keep going toward the phone. And the moment we have the phone, it draws our thumbs to keep moving the screen up. It's this triggered reflex for this interior desire for constant dopamine hits. And so the familiar downward swipe or upward swipe, it's become a revealing ritual of modern life, to the point where I was recently made privy again by my friend Brian that someone just released a Bible app that is modeled after scrolling. So you can doom scroll the scriptures, and it was downloaded. It's doing really well apparently on the App Store. But here's the reality. These apps are designed to not function based on rational reasons. They really are designed for the sake of transforming the brain into longing for constant hits of psychological reward during short intervals. In fact, some studies are saying that the intervals are as short as 47 seconds. And that number itself is crucial. University of California, Irvine, the researcher here was Gloria Mark. And Gloria reports from nearly 2 decades of research that people now average only about 47 seconds of attention on a screen on a particular thing before they feel the desire to shift elsewhere. And they don't ever return fully to a task. In fact, they find themselves easily interrupted after the 47-second mark. But if they are immersed in a task, it seems that 25 minutes now is the maximum threshold. And there's a problem here too, because there's an economic structure surrounding this distraction. It has become darker. Human attention is now commercially valuable. Advertisers cannot influence eyes, but social media platforms can. And so advertisers seek out these digital platforms for the advertisements to hit our eyes. And so companies are now competing aggressively for seconds of consciousness or minutes of consciousness. And any time that's spent hovered on their ad eventually generates revenue in the long run by means of collective persuasion. Now, in all of this, what we've also seen is that the deepest damage is visible amongst children. Developing minds encounter these technologies without the maturity, the discipline, and the virtue that's required for self-government. What makes it worse is the younger you are, the higher your rate of neuroplasticity, and so the neural pathways are structured to the end of developing deeper addictions. The 2023 U.S. Surgeon General's Advisory Report reported that up to 95% of Americans between 13 and 17 use social media. Roughly 1/3 report using it almost constantly. Adolescents spend more than 3 hours daily on social platforms, and they've been shown to face double the risk of mental health problems as their age goes on, typically starting with the symptoms of depression and anxiety. And you can look up this study. This was in 2023. Society has conducted an extraordinary behavioral experiment upon children with these social media apps and digital screens. And so as parents, yes, we face enormous pressure, because if you remove screens, you can produce real social disadvantages. Now, whether we like it or not, they're part of social operation. School assignments, friendships, a lot of these are going through screens now. I teach in an online program right now to deacons in formation. Everything I do for the program is on the screen. I teach sacred scripture. But all this means is that we have to develop new virtues of constant responsibility, including, as families, frequently confronting and regulating the systems that are already constructed and maintaining constant human connectivity with our children. Because we've normalized this now. Whether we like it or not, the cultural normalization has changed the way human relationships function. I'll prove this in a very pithy point. When I was young, if I wanted, and my bride would say the same thing, when we were very, very young and we wanted to play with our friends in the evening, we'd go over to their house, ring the doorbell. Hi, Mr. Such and Such, is so-and-so available to play? You'd look them in the eye, you'd have a conversation with them, no matter how brief, and they'd say, yes, they are, and then you'd go off and you'd play, and you'd have a real human connection for however long. Today, I personally know this because back when I used to teach high school, my students told me this because a lot of them received smartphones from a young age. They'd go over to their friend's house, even if it's walked over, and they'd text the friend, here. That's it. Or not even I'm here, just sometimes here. And the friend would just come out. There's no interaction. And then they'd go out, and sometimes the rest of the evening is spent with the both of them sitting next to each other on their phones. And the funny thing is, this is really competing against marital fidelity and marital intimacy. I mean this in no uncertain terms. One of the struggles of couples in connecting right now is that couples have to compete against screens for the attentions of their spouses. And this is why Christianity, in her perennial wisdom, has the older understanding of slavery to lean back on. Whether we like it or not, there is a form of slavery here, because we are being held in captivity by technology that is designed to serve us. And yet, the way to break out of this is between God's grace and human virtue. We can, in discipline and self-governance, say, I am imposing these limitations. I am creating the avenues for accountability, including with my spouse, but also with my friends. And yes, turn off the phone during dinner. Leave it outside the bedroom when we're going to sleep. Protect Sundays, because the Sabbath is a crucial part of family development. Let Jesus Christ be the Lord of our technological consumption as well. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.